Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. Today I want to give an update on 3 trees I have worked on previously in the last couple of weeks and months and simply take a closer look together on how they're doing thus far. And I want to start with this little Aralia right here that the last time I showed this I pruned back a little bit. So we have 2 major stems on this tree. We have this lower stem down here, they're coming off, so a lower branch coming off from the main trunk, and then this definitely bigger branch up here. We had this one higher back in the day, so it was basically at the same height as this one, and I shortened it considerably. And the goal was, of course, also to get some ramification going on. So simply to have this branch in specific branch out more, so develop multiple branches from here. And this has been successful thus far. You can see especially up here how much growth there is currently already developing, with little side branches also starting to shoot off here from this branch. And that simply helps us getting a more mature look on this tree. And I think we're on a good way here. It is starting to get woody also a little bit from the base here, which is also a good sign. And hopefully it will also affect the overall trunk underneath here, getting also here a little bit more movement. Because this whole tree has started from one of those little plant plugs that you can buy in many garden stores or garden centers or box stores, and yeah, they are often quite far away from being a very well-developed tree, but I think we're on a good way and in a nice direction here with this tree. I also pruned back here the growth up here, and I can also see here branching happening. So definitely here is 1 or 2 additional branches starting to develop. Again, branching out here a little bit. Same here with a second branch that comes off straight from down here from this little side branch that I leave on right now, simply to also, of course, encourage the tree to thicken down here a little bit. And in general, I'm not sure yet if we will keep that in the future or not. For now, I don't mind that they come from the same growth point here. I think this is actually somewhat beneficial for the overall health of the tree, and that's also the reason why I leave it on at the moment. Let's talk a little bit more about the health of this tree. This is probably the tree that has treated me the nicest all throughout growth season this year, because the growth is just amazing. So I really don't have any problems with this tree, especially since I repotted it in the soil mixture in inorganic soil. It is so easy to take care of. It is just continuing to grow. It continues to grow in winter. It continues to grow a bit faster than in growth season. I fertilize it once in a while. It seems happy with that. So it's very, very easy to take care of that. I have it a little bit removed from a window so it doesn't get any direct sunlight, but still indirect sunlight enough for it to have a lot of new growth and a lot of healthy growth. I like the foliage on this variety because it stays so nice and small, so it is definitely fitting for bonsai. Especially for tropical bonsai, I would say. And the goal, in which direction I still want to take this a little bit, is to give it a more mature look simply by letting it grow now freely again. We have achieved some branching out here already. Now it needs to grow anyway again to be able to continue to work on that. And I want to somehow also hopefully affect the branch or the trunk down here to get a little bit more interesting, a little bit thicker, just a little bit more mature looking in the end. So that is the goal for this tree. Just let it grow, hope that it continues to grow the way it does. I won't change anything about taking care of it because it does so well. So yeah, that much about the first tree. And that already brings me to the next tree, this little Ficus Ginseng here that I bought. The way the tree looks more or less from a box store, but I in the last video repotted it into its first bonsai pot. Before it was just in a normal plant pot, in a little plastic pot, which was then again in a cover pot. And I thought it at that point was time to repot it. It has taken very well to this new pot. I think the pot still, I find it looks quite nice on this tree. I have it a little bit leaning in here, leaning towards the a slightly higher rim on this side. I think that also gives it a somewhat interesting look, definitely. The foliage I have wired at a previous stage already just to spread it out a little bit. It was very dense because this is in general a very healthy growing tree. A lot of dense foliage on this Ficus microcarpa variety. And for, simply due to the reason that I didn't want a lot of the inner growth to die back because it doesn't get enough sunlight, I decided to wire it out right from the beginning to create somewhat of an open space in here that is slowly starting to fill now here also with a lot of the lower growth happening here. So a nice canopy, definitely. I don't really have any focus goals on this tree at the moment because it did just repot it, so it has been now, I would say roughly 1.5, 2 months in this new pot. Also in a new soil mixture, of course. Before it was in the usual cocoa coir mixture that often these trees come in. And for now, I just wanted to continue to grow. I can see a lot of new growth happening here. It is especially those leaves that come always a little bit lighter in the beginning, and then over time they darken, as do all these other leaves here. And it seems to settle in. I wouldn't say it is completely settled in yet. The growth has slowed down a little bit. That is, of course, quite often the case when we repot a tree. It is a tropical tree, so there's no problem with repotting it during growth season. But nevertheless, you shouldn't stress it too much afterwards. So I didn't do any pruning, any wiring. I didn't really do any root pruning when I repotted this because the root system, unfortunately, as is the case often with those box store trees, it was not the best. There was not a lot of root mass on this tree to work with. So at the moment, I'd rather hope that this tree now focuses a lot of its energy on growing a healthier root system, which of course will make it also healthier overall over the next couple of months and years then, when we really think about how we want to continue to work on this tree. What I can see probably in the future is, of course, focusing a little bit more on the foliage again. I said, since we wired it, I haven't really done much on the foliage up here. We can do really some structural work then in the future. Take a closer look at the single branches, how we can still maybe reapply the wire at certain stages, maybe take out certain branches, to simply see in which direction we can take this tree, growing it also a little bit further up here still. But overall, I'm quite happy with the way it's doing right now. But I don't see really a lot of potential to work on this still this growth season. So probably this one will stay the way it is until probably next spring, when I then decide, depending on how the health of the tree is and how the growth of the tree is, what to continue to work on. But just giving you a little update, because of course it's always nice to see when we repot a tree, how is it faring then the weeks after the repot. And as I can show you with this one, it's definitely doing quite well. So, and as a last tree, I want to give you an example that sometimes working on a tree can also have quite severe effects on a tree. And the case in point for this is my variegated Ficus Benjamina. It's a fusion project that, as you can see, has become quite bare since the last time I pruned it back. What I did the last time was simply pruning it into shape again, but I think what I have not paid attention to is the weather report, basically. We were quite in a heat spell at that point. I think simply it dried out too fast for me to actually realize that it started to dry out a little bit. Of course, with a lot of small open wounds from the pruning, from the cuts. It can be that the tree dried out faster than I would have anticipated, and this way it reacted quite severely. It dropped, I would say, almost 3/4 of all leaves over the last couple of weeks. Since then, I think I just made sure to continue, of course, watering it, making first of all sure that it was not a problem of overwatering. Then I simply continued the routine when I saw that the soil is starting to dry, water it, just still stabilizing the health, hopefully. And I think we're at a point where it has stabilized. I can see now little growth points coming again from many different parts of this tree. And that is definitely a good sign that it will come back. I do see probably some of those lower branches here, they have dried up and died back. They probably won't come back. Maybe at a later point with back budding, we can work on something down here again. But I can see a lot of new growth happening up here. The first thing I did once I saw that it actually started to stabilize a little bit is to really check if all 3 of the trees that are in here have actually survived. As I said, it is a fusion project, as you can see now very clearly with the wire visible here. For that to work, of course, we need 3 viable trees in here that continue to grow until the space runs out here a little bit, and hopefully then they start to fuse together. And luckily I can see that all 3 of these trees still have foliage on it, and not just some small foliage. Basically all of the bigger leaves up here are the separate trees on the 3 separate trees in here. So thankfully all 3 trees are still alive. We don't have to remove one of those trees, for example. I had that with another fusion project where one of 3 trees also died back and I had to take it out and then of course reapply the wire to again make it tight enough for them to fuse. But here I think we luckily caught it early enough that all 3 trees hopefully will bounce back and continue to grow and hopefully then also continue to fuse together. But yeah, just giving you an idea of also what can look like when you work on a tree. It was quite unexpected because especially this one in past pruning sessions, it bounced back completely normal, as most trees actually do when you prune them, that they don't really show that strong a reaction to it. But I think simply this combination of course the shock of being pruned, that is always somewhat of a shock on a tree as well, with then quite drastic weather, quite hot weather, and maybe going a bit too dry in maybe only 1 or 2 days. That simply was enough for the tree go into survival mode, dropping leaves that were deemed not necessary, trying to conserve water, of course, then also basically limiting the amount and area on which water evaporates, which of course is happening on the leaves. And yeah, once it received then enough water again, I think now it's stabilized and it stopped dropping the leaves then. Thankfully, it was not overwatering. I think that is something that's always a little bit more difficult to deal with, especially when it turns into root rot. Underwatering, if you catch it early enough, of course, is something that can be reversed, especially on something as hardy as a ficus. Ficus variegated varieties, of course, are always a little bit more finicky. They're always a little bit more sensitive when it comes to environmental changes. So definitely something I will keep in mind in the future when I work on this tree. But hopefully now it will stabilize a little bit more. The new growth that is starting to develop is hopefully also viable and continue to stay on this tree, filling in those branches again. And once it does so, I will definitely give you an update on that as well. Simply giving you then an idea how a tree can look like within hopefully a couple of weeks after bouncing back from quite a severe shock to the tree. But yeah, those 3 trees I wanted to show you today, give you a little bit of an update. Some of them are doing quite well, like my Aralia and my Ficus Ginseng. Some are somewhat at a more difficult stage at the moment, but stabilizing. And yeah, hopefully they will also make their way into nice growth again in the future. As I said, I will keep you updated. If you have any questions about these trees, feel free to leave them in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to leave a like. And if you enjoy my channel, of course, feel free to subscribe to it. Hopefully I will see you in the next video. Until then, take care.